peak maple syrup and peak nuclear for that matter. You know, that we're now living in a world of limits that didn't used to exist before. And we really need, in a really big way, a change in human nature. And the big question is whether that change is possible. Can we
That's the big question.
change? Can we do it?
Well, I think that's interesting in the context of the recent volcano in Iceland, and how that's shut down everything in Europe anyways for the time being, and how vulnerable some of these new technologies, and then we're already flying, which isn't that new. But I mean, and also just the magnitude of what's, I mean, I heard, you know, something like 17,000 flights a day are being canceled, and who knew that that many people are traveling in this fashion, and what are the implications of that, and what is the future?
Were you alluding to remote mental communication? Or is this maybe picking up on that when you were speaking earlier?
Well, I think what's happened is that in cultural terms, the difference between the performer on the stage and the audience sitting in the and watching, that's changed. The difference between the person who writes the book and the person who reads the book has changed. If you think about email, now the writers are the readers and the readers are the writers, and it's all completely, and everyone's now performing. So we're back in almost a tribal situation where we're all dancing together. There's no ballet dancers on stage and we're the paying consumers. We're all doing it together, and that changes the way creativity works and all the way I think society organizes itself and the way we think about who we are and our relationships with each other and so on. It's a huge change.
So in those early days of the Western Front, when you were doing these early mail art and all of those things in the early communication, did you ever envision some of the things that are happening?
Oh, yeah, I think so. I mean, of course,
but
I didn't envision Facebook or Twitter, but
Not the exact
envisioning a network of instant worldwide communication with Dick Tracy phones. Yeah. And in fact, you know, Dick Tracy comics were written in the 1920s. I mean, they were already thinking about the idea that this would happen. So it is interesting.
But I like this, what you're saying, that, you know, there is no boundaries anymore, or it's getting who is the artist and who is the audience. Because like with the digital camera, the two is so friendly, and the results are so good that we have, you know, pretty much everybody is a photographer now. And so the ways you have to express yourself as an artist, and I really believe that everybody is an artist, so you have more ways of putting it out.
What happened in Haiti was just an amazing example.
The danger is that, you know, now you're supposed to have more agency as an individual. You can express yourself, you can publish your own book, everyone's an artist, and so on and so forth. But what is happening at the same time is that, you know, the individual has become a consumer. And that individualism has become this kind of competitive thing where I'm better than you or you're better than me, and all you have to do is look at reality television to see what individualism means in this capitalist realm. It's interesting that it's called social media and not socialist media, right? And you know, like what happens to the social in an era where we have these great tools, but that in fact this divide between rich and poor has never been greater in the whole history of humanity. And that these technologies are not lessening that, they're increasing that. And so we have a kind of ideology of the democratization and the creative city. And then you discover actually what the creative city really means is that the arts have to be stamped out. Now that everyone's an artist, we don't need artists anymore. And we can get rid of artists. And you can see all sorts of examples. I mean, art is under attack in this city. There was a group of young artists who they called me up. These guys have moved into a house on, you know, 5th and Quebec or somewhere in that kind of light industrial zone, a funky old house, and they started having art shows in their living room, and they called themselves the Whatnot Gallery. And now the city is on them, shutting them down, saying, you can't do this, you're not zoned to do this, you can't have this. Well, what kind of creative city is that? I mean, who cares? They're just showing some pictures in their living room. What's the big deal? But there is no, the zoning bylaw has no thing called cultural use, so you're not allowed to do that. So on the one hand, you have all this rhetoric about arts and culture and creativity, and if you have a creative city, and it just makes you super suspicious.
Yeah,
Social media is
It
supposed to be...
it takes a while to organize it all. I mean, we have-
No, that's just the argument that Malcolm Gladwell.
Yeah.
So it's called social media, and it's supposed to be empowering people to communicate with you, but actually, your friends on your Facebook, they're not really friends. It's the illusion of friendship. This is the critique, right? You're not really meeting anybody. You have the illusion of a human relationship, but actually, without any of the risks that come from actual physical connection. And I think that the interesting and important thing about this show is that is the concreteness of it, is the zippers on the collages. And even the photographs of damaged furniture in there. You know, that's an interesting piece because we're so used to that stuff flitting by on the screen, and now the guy's fixed it in an object that you can pick up.
Nicely bound.
And nicely bound. And it's actually, you look at that book in 40 years, it's going to be a pretty interesting document of something that's now gone. Who saves their emails anymore? You know, so I think this idea of the concrete, the physical, the fact that we're sitting in this room is very important. I was very struck by something that Ron Burnett said, is that you cannot have distance education without a classroom. And that, you know, so this is a really valuable show because it brings it down to earth. It actually says, okay, how are we effective
Makes
as
it physical.
human beings? It makes it physical and we meet each other, and that's very important. And as much as those tools are able to facilitate organization of people in a new way, in a way that people can actually have some determination over what kind of lives they're going to have and what kind of city they want to live in, and not just which kind of the 50 different kinds of cornflakes they're going to buy. And that's supposed to be called democracy. Freedom of choice.